Hey, I just wanted to talk. Don't walk away from me.
Where do you think you're going?
Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Today we're taking a look at the Mortal Toys, the McFarlane Toys Mortal Kombat Spawn. Ooh, it's been a couple weeks since I've laid hands on plastic. My friends at the McFarlane booth at Toy Fair were kind enough to give this to me so I could take a look at it before the actual release this week. I think it's this week. It's going to be hitting Walmart.com, some Walmart stores, and then a week later, it'll be hitting everywhere else. So this should be pretty easy to get here very quickly. Looking at the package, it's what we're used to with McFarlane. We see the toy, we see some graphics, nothing too fancy, which is okay, because this is getting chunked anyway. You see everything you're getting in the package, the whole figure, and man, the green background just makes Spawn pop. On the side, just a Mortal Kombat logo, McFarlane Toys, McFarlane Toys. On the back, a very pretty promotional shot of Spawn walking through the green mist. 22 moving parts, which is what McFarlane calls their super articulation system. 22 points. I kind of count more, but hey, whatever. On the other side, promotional shot, another picture where he kind of wraps around to the front. That's not bad at all. On the top, window to allow light to shine down upon your toy. On the bottom, legalese, barcode. But let's get this open, see what's going on here. Tray, Mortal Kombat on that green background. Here's your usual McFarlane stand. Oh no, it's trapped in cardboard. Just a basic disc, foot peg, Mortal Kombat. Where they didn't want his head moving, he's wearing a crown of plastic. Oh, and getting it out of the package, it's so spawny. I have to admit, half of my excitement here is because it's, at least for my collection, finally a super articulated Spawn figure. It's hard not to say there's extra detail packed in here because this is McFarlane's baby, but at the same time, if you look at the other Mortal Kombat figures, they're packed with detail too. I think this is just par for the course. It has everything that makes Spawn on here. It has this design coming up on the chest. Has some chain going on, of course. It's a softer material, so those aren't too pokey. But it still has nice detail to the skull right here on the front, and it does a good job of replicating chain. I know some people were hoping for a cleaner design, earlier Spawn appearance, but this is Mortal Kombat look, and it kind of pulls from the later looks of Spawn, where he has the big gauntlet, and of course the big ass boot. It's spiky, it's textured, it just brings in a lot of elements to what could be, and what was originally, a fairly smooth costume. Hell, we even have some 90s pouches sneaking in here. And all the add-ons have a nice texture to it, very worn look. The spikes are painted silver, but there's kind of a shading to them, give them a little age too. Same for the bands over here on the other foot, and I love the asymmetry. Again, not everybody's cup of tea, but for me, I love this kind of design work. Same thing for the arms. Over here on the left, it's a little bit more subdued, a bit more just a form-fitting. He's got a band around the bicep up here. Same design, spikes, red, textured, aged. But over on the right, he has a big honking gauntlet that, in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, probably works as a shield of some kind. Again, heavy to the right, lighter to the left, but he makes up for it with extra design elements. But underneath all that, if you look at the actual, well, I'm not gonna say skin, but you know, the darker parts of the costume, it has a texture too, almost like skin. It kind of pulls from a symbiote element, like this is over. And I can't remember Spawn's costume if it's organic of some kind or if it's just cloth, but the extra detail doesn't hurt a thing, especially for a character like this. Under the cape, it still continues the costume design up here on the back. And speaking of the cape, not the lightest material. It's a little bit heavy, but that's to get all these deep folds, all this detail into it. Hell, it almost looks like double layered, but that's all part of the sculpt. It's tattered, it's torn, it's dirty. Again, it's Spawn. Up at the collar, because it's a little bit thinner, it's way softer. It gets out of the way of extreme head movement. And the head, the promotional shots made me think, oh, the eyes seem a little bit low, but I don't know, having it in person, it completely changes my outlook here. It brings up the same whitish elements of the costume to here, same texture to the darker parts, again, tying it to the rest of the body. But those eyes, I think that's what does it for me. I love the asymmetry, I love the reds, I love the spikes, but man, those ghostly, ethereal eyes staring out from behind that mask, that sells it for me. It's not glow in the dark or anything, it's just a neon type green that I think is further accentuated by the dingy colors around it. The clean application there is a fantastic contrast against the rest of the costume. He's staring into your soul. Now, because of the heaviness of the cape, it can be a little bit back heavy. You have to kind of lean him forward a bit to get him to stand. Just a little bit, and it being a 90s character, I have no problem with it doing some extreme posing. And honestly, the big boot does help a little bit with the stability. It does get in the way if you want to splay out. There's no way that's going flat. But even in the back position, you can curl his toe and the big boot isn't in the way. If you're familiar with McFarlane's existing Mortal Kombat or Fortnite or any other articulated line he puts out, you know the articulation scheme here. I've ran into this with a couple of other figures, and it's that the bicep doesn't quite line up with the articulation at the elbow. It's not a big deal. I mean, it doesn't get in the way of anything, and it may be more anatomically correct that way, but I don't know. Maybe it's years and years and years and years and years of action figures having them lined up. It just stands out at me slightly. And it's not like it's turned all the way in or anything. It's just a little bit of... And then, of course, there is the thigh swivel. It's more like the DC line where it's brought down as a V. And there is twist there, but when you have it in a neutral position, all the parts and pieces fit together so well that it blocks movement. So the functionality is there. You can rotate on that joint, but when you bring it down, it's so aesthetically sound that it doesn't allow for that movement. Until we figure out some kind of synthetic skin to put over, which I guess they're going in that direction with some lines, it's kind of a give and take there. Also, the same thing of the ball joint at the waist. You can't bring it down because they run into each other. Again, that's how the real world works. Physics, you can't put two objects in the same space at the same time, and that's one of the hindrances of fully plastic action figures. Going over the articulation, what is going on up here? It seems to be a dumbbell joint at the top of the neck. You can look up, down, oh so much tilt. Swivel, there's a dumbbell joint at the shoulder coming out with a cup in there to hide the gappiness. So you can go back, forward, up, down. That hinges out, swivels around, swivel at the bicep, focus, swivel at the bicep. Double elbow, but because of the design itself, this gauntlet kind of gets in the way, but still past 90. There's a swivel hinge swivel at the wrist. Again, because of the gauntlet, a little bit hard to get to, but you can make it go up and down, swivel. Ball joint mid-torso, ball joint at the waist together. Not bad crunch. Arc back, to the side, to the side. Talked about the hip, it swivels, comes up all the way. Back, hinges out. Already went over this. There is a swivel at the hip, but the further into neutral position you go, the less it moves. Double knee. Oh, big boot. Kick that ass. So close. Swivel hinge swivel at the ankle. It swivels right below the bands. Hinges back. Hinges forward. Forward facing pin for rocker. And then toe joint that goes all the way up. And under the big boot, same thing. It's hollowed out. It has the same articulation. Just a little bit more hindered because of, this big plastic piece coming around it. Spawn comes with the sword. If you throw this into a weapons box, you're going to go right to it as being Spawn's sword. It has some nice detail. It looks aged, weathered up on the blade. It has a Spawn logo down towards the handle using that same groovy green eye color, and then a black spike for the pommel. The hands are not the softest material in the world, but because of the shape of that, you just poke through. Just remember, don't put your thumb on this side and start pushing. It's not the sharpest, but you will stab yourself. All the way through. And because of the size of the sword, the articulation of the figure, you can get it into two-handed poses. And I'll say it looks amazing that way. Spawn stands at about 7¼ inches tall to the top of his head. Here he is with the McFarlane Toys Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero. Perfectly fit. Same line, it's gonna fit. Or if you wanted to get Spawn in some Fortnite action, here's the McFarlane Night Hair.
They're both staring into your soul.
Ooh, went a little Undertaker. Ooh, plastic capes don't play well when you're trying to line them up. Here's Spawn with the McFarlane DC Multiverse line Superman and Batman. Here he is with the NECA DC Batman and the DC Collectibles, or Direct Now, I guess, Essentials Batman. Still a big figure. But because of that size, it's not going to fit with your smaller scale, like Marvel Legends or DC Universe Classics. Unless you like a big honkin' Spawn. But at the end of the day, it's a super articulated Spawn. It's something I've wanted for a long time, so consider me happy. Sure, I'd like some fly around cape, or hell, I may go looking for cloth cape here, or some action chains shooting out, or now that I have a big boot Spawn, I'd like to have another one that's cleaner without all the embellishments and such. It being McFarlane's own creation, it is kind of weird that the first Spawn we get like this is in the Mortal Kombat line, but that's a big media event. Mortal Kombat's huge, and Spawn coming to that game is going to be a huge reveal. So there's a lot behind this release besides it just being a super articulated Spawn. But this opens the doors. It gets people excited, and maybe the crazy Kickstarter idea that McFarlane's running with right now for the next Spawn figure, maybe that'll just take off, especially since he came back and said that it could be a super articulated Spawn. And apparently if that kicks off, we're going to get more characters from that first wave of Spawn, which means background characters or secondary characters or villains for him to fight. Ooh, that's exciting. Now believe me, I know that McFarlane Toys is not for everybody. We've went so long in a certain scale that him kind of breaking the mold, which is a very McFarlane-esque thing to do, it takes me out of my wheelhouse, but it's kind of snuck in there too, because I like the DC figures, I like some of the Mortal Kombat figures, I like the My Hero Academia figures, but then there's the Fortnite stuff, and I've slowly come around to, hey, I'm okay if this display is a slightly different scale than that display. So while this Spawn can hang out with the Mortal Kombat figures, he may slip more over into my DC display whenever that gets up. And it'll be more of a showcase since a lot of those characters are in different styles, but I'm excited for the future, and I'm excited for maybe more Spawn stuff coming. And then maybe everybody could get their version of Spawn, and we can all be happy and sing around the campfire and just play with our toys and be content. That's how it works. So if you enjoyed the review, comment, like, subscribe, or whatever the platform you're watching this on allows. Much love to the Plus if you're interested in seeing videos early or are in a position to help out the channel, patreon.com. But wherever you may be watching this, I'll catch you on the Fwoosh.